turn your attention to. And the other thing I want to turn your attention to is the fact that on June the 12th, 1967, on June the 12th, 1967, on June the 12th, 1967, the United States Supreme Court, in a case known as Loving versus Virginia, would give birth to the Snow Bunny crisis. On June the 12th of 1967, 10 months before Dr. King was assassinated. On June the 12th, 1967, 10 months before Dr. King was assassinated. On June the 12th, 1967, 10 months before Dr. King was assassinated, the United States Supreme Court would give birth to the Snow Bunny crisis in a case known as Loving versus Virginia. In a case known as Loving versus Virginia, the United States Supreme Court would strike down all remaining laws that would prevent interracial marriage. Let me say this again. I'm giving you the history of Black America according to the Prince of Pan-Africanism. I'm giving you the history of Black America according to the Prince of Pan-Africanism. On June the 12th of 1967, the United States Supreme Court would give birth to the Snow Bunny crisis in a famous case known as Loving versus Virginia. A white man, a European, a Caucasian by the name of Loving would sue for the right to marry a black woman. A white man by the name of Loving would sue for the right to marry a black woman. He was arrested in 1958 for daring to marry this black woman. Virginia had a racial integrity law. The state of Virginia had a racial integrity law that didn't allow blacks and whites to get married or cohabitate. When Loving married the black woman, he violated the Virginia racial integrity law. He went to jail for 1 year. He sued the Virginia Supreme Court. He sued at the Virginia Supreme Court and he lost. So he took the case to the U.S. Supreme Court. He took the case to the U.S. Supreme Court. And after taking the case to the U.S. Supreme Court on June the 12th of 1967, on June the 12th, 1967, the Supreme Court outlawed all anti-interracial marriage laws in America. On June the 12th, 1967, the Supreme Court outlawed all remaining anti-interracial marriage laws. All anti-miscegenation laws were ruled unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court on June the 7th, 1967. Why is this relevant? Why is this relevant? The reason the Loving decision is relevant, the reason the U.S. Supreme Court's Loving decision is relevant, which gave birth to the modern Snow Bunny crisis, which gave birth to the modern Snow Bunny crisis, the reason it is relevant is many white people, especially in the southern states, many Europeans, especially in the southern states, blamed Dr. King for the Supreme Court's decision. I'm going to say it again. Part of the motivation to kill Dr. King came from the Loving decision. The government was concerned about economic revolution, but the poor white man and the working class white man was concerned about social revolution. The government killed Dr. King for economic revolution, but the poor white man blamed King for the social revolution that the Loving decision would give birth to. So one of the reasons white folks became so possessed with undermining Dr. King in the South was they blamed Dr. King for the loving decision that the Supreme Court gave birth to. Dr. King had nothing to do with it. Dr. King had nothing to do with it. Dr. King had nothing to do with it except for the fact that his I Have a Dream speech, except for the fact that his I Have a Dream speech did say he looked forward to an America where little white boys and little white girls could hold hands. He did say in the I Have a Dream speech on the March on Washington, 1963 March on Washington, he did say he hoped little white boys and little white and black, little white girls and little black girls and little white boys and little black boys could hold hands. That's all Dr. King said. But Dr. King's agenda was not to push interracial marriage. Dr. King's agenda was not to push interracial marriage, but because he fought for desegregation of public accommodations. Any integrationist progress, any integrationist decisions, any integrationist laws would automatically be blamed on Dr. King. So the loving decision on June 12th of 1967, along with the release of the Kerner Commission on February 29th of 1968 that would give Dr. King all the ammunition he would need to lead his economic revolution, along with the fact that he was moving towards a greater embrace of revolutionary grassroots activism. Dr. King was moving towards a greater embrace of grassroots revolutionary activism. They had to kill our brother. They had to kill our brother. They had to kill our brother. Now, right after they killed Dr. King, Dr. King's murder would ignite 100 riots in over 100 cities. Dr. King's murder, his assassination by the United States government, would trigger over 100 riots in 100 different cities. So America burned in 67 with the race riots led by Detroit and Newark. And then America would burn the next year in 1968 with the race riots that came as a result of Dr. King's assassination. The Dr. King riots. The Dr. King riots would slightly edge out the 1967 riots. The Dr. King riots were considered the most significant social unrest since the Civil War. The 1967 riots were also considered the most significant riots since the 1863 Civil War draft riots of New York. The Dr. King assassination riots were considered the most significant social unrest in America since the Civil War itself. That was April 4th. But they were not done killing black leaders. That was April 4th. But they were not done killing black leaders. That was April 4th. But they were not done killing black leaders. 2 days after they murdered Dr. King. 2 days after they murdered Dr. King on April 4th, they would murder little Bobby Hutton on April 6th of the Black Panther Party. 2 days after they murdered Dr. King on April the 4th of 1968, they would murder little Bobby Hutton, the youngest founding member of the Black Panther Party for self-defense in Oakland. Little Bobby Hutton. Little Bobby Hutton, the first recruit of Huey and Bobby. Little Bobby Hutton, the first recruit of Huey and Bobby and the first treasurer of the Black Panther Party. The first treasurer, Little Bobby Hutton, became the first martyr of the Black Panther movement and the post-Dr. King and post-Malcolm era, when he was shot 12 times by Oakland police, accompanied by Eldridge Cleaver. 2 weeks before his 18th birthday, they assassinated Dr. King and Little Bobby Hutton 48 hours apart. They assassinated Dr. King and Little Bobby Hutton 48 hours apart. Rest in peace. I will be coming to Oakland. I will be coming to Oakland. I will be coming to Oakland. Stand up, Bay Area. The Prince will be coming. Let's continue. Let's continue. On April the 26th, the Bilderbergers would meet in Canada. The Bilderbergers would meet in Canada. For those of you who don't know about the Bilderberg, it is the ruling secret society of the planet Earth. Greater than the Illuminati, greater than the Skull and Bones, greater than the House of Rothschild, greater than the Rockefeller Trilaterals. The Bilderbergs, founded at the hotel where they held their first meeting, Hotel de Bilderberg in France, I believe it was. I'm going to do a whole podcast, second season Dr. Papa podcast. I'm going to do a whole podcast on secret societies that matter. Because all y'all know is Illuminati. Illuminati don't run this planet no more. They still have influence, but the Illuminati does not have the power of the Bilderbergers. I'll do a whole podcast on secret societies that Africans need to know about. But let's get back to this. So the Bilderbergers would meet in 1968. And the Bilderberg meeting would focus on suppressing Black revolution in America and Africa. Let me say it again. The Bilderbergers would meet in Canada on April of 1968. And one of the agenda items was how to suppress Black revolution in America and in Africa. And also discuss how they could keep the Pan-African movement from undermining white supremacy. The Bilderbergers discuss how do you keep the Black American struggle from uniting with the Black African struggle. See, this is why ADOS is a reactionary anti-revolutionary movement. This is why FBA, fraudulent Black Americans, fake Black Americans, phony Black Americans, FBA, led by the Museum Coon. This is why that is an anti-revolutionary movement. Because the power structure that runs this planet, isn't concerned about metrosexuals opening up museums. The power structure that runs this planet isn't worried about metrosexuals open up museums. The power structure is worried about whether the Black American struggle will ever unite with the Black African struggle for a complete and comprehensive global Pan-African movement. That's what this is about. That's the only fear of global white power. Will the Black African and the Black American unite to liberate the African race? Will the Black American and the Black African unite to liberate the African race? They were talking about that in the 1960s. There was a national security memorandum that said we cannot let the American African and the continental African unite. We cannot let the American African and the continental African unite, brothers and sisters. That's what this is about. Don't let no metrosexual movie makers brainwash you about your agenda. Don't let no metrosexual movie makers brainwash you about what you should really be focused on, brothers and sisters. Now let us continue. On June 19th, 1968. On June 19th, 1968. On June 19th, 1968, the U.S. government gave Black America a Juneteenth gift. On Juneteenth, 1968. On Juneteenth, 1968. On Juneteenth, 1968, the United States government gave Black America a Juneteenth gift. What was the Juneteenth gift that the United States government gave Black America in 1968? What was the June 19th gift that Black America gave? Excuse me, what was the June 19th, 1968 gift that the U.S. government gave to Black America? On June 19th, 1968, the federal government passed the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968. Please listen. This is important. Please listen. This is important. Listen up. What was the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968? What was the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968? It was a anti-crime bill. Anti-crime bill that was designed to reduce crime, coordinate law enforcement, increase the minimum gun age to 21, stop interstate gun trade, and it led to a 945% increase in incarceration. Y'all not listening. Y'all not listening. In order to undermine the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army, in order to undermine the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army in the aftermath of the Dr. King and Bobby Hutton murder, your U.S. Congress, the same Congress that won't give you the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, the same Congress that won't give you the George Floyd Police Accountability Act, gave you the Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968. And the Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968 increased incarceration 945%. Did y'all hear what I said? I'm going to say it again. The Crime Control Safe Streets Act that they passed right after they killed King and Little Bobby Hutton to undermine the Black Power and Black Liberation Army, the Safe Streets Act of 1968 increased jail populations with Black people by 945%. It provided the police with new weapons. It gave them more police. It provided the police with more weapons. It gave them more police, more surveillance technology, and it increased the FBI budget. Why did they increase the FBI budget? You done killed Medgar. You done killed Malcolm. You done killed Martin. You done killed Little Bobby Hutton. Why did you need to increase the FBI budget? Because they were going after the Panthers and they were going after the Black Liberation Army. Lyndon Baines Johnson, your Democratic president. Lyndon Baines Johnson, your Democratic president. Lyndon Baines Johnson, your Democratic president, is the reason the police have been militarized in the Black community. I'm going to say it again. Lyndon Baines Johnson, your Democratic president, is the reason the police have been militarized in the Black community. Let us continue. Let us continue. On May the 27th of 1968, the Supreme Court orders all states to dismantle segregated public schools, quote, from the root to the branch. The Supreme Court ordered all states on May 27th, 1968, to dismantle segregated schooling from the root to the branch in 5 areas: staff, faculty, transportation, extracurricular activities, and facilities. Listen to this. On May the 27th, 1968, the United States Supreme Court ordered all states to dismantle segregated education from the root to the branch in the 5 areas of facilities, staff, faculty, transportation, and extracurricular activities. So let me ask you a question. If the Supreme Court, 78, 88, 98, 08, 18, 25 years ago, the Supreme Court ordered all schools desegregated from the root to the branch, why are the schools still segregated? 55 years later, the schools are still segregated. 55 years later, the schools are still segregated. 55 years later, the schools are still segregated. If the Supreme Court ordered on May 27th, 1968, that all states dismantle segregation from the root to the branch, why do most black children still go to segregated public schools? I thought the Supreme Court was the judicial branch of the U.S. government. So why aren't the schools integrated? Not that we want them to be, but I'm showing you the hypocrisy of American justice and law. Not that we want them to be, but I want to show you the hypocrisy of American justice and law. And then on June 6, 1968, the white power structure murdered Senator Robert F. Kennedy. The Attorney General was murdered on June 6, 1968. Murdered. White power structure murdered him. And then on August the 26th of 1968, Bobby Seale, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, at Chicago's Democratic National Convention, had a rally, and he was arrested along with 7 others known as the Chicago 8, sentenced to 4 years. They accused Bobby Seale of plotting to disrupt the Democratic National Convention. And then in September of 68, Huey Newton is convicted of killing a cop. Huey Newton is sentenced to 2 to 15 years. A new trial was ordered for Huey P. Newton, and his sentence was overturned, and he was released in 1970 after the California Court of Appeals reversed Huey P. Newton's conviction. On October the 12th of 1968, Equatorial Guinea gains its independence from Spain. Shout out to all my continental Africans from Equatorial Guinea who just celebrated your independence this past October 12th. We stand in solidarity with you. Equatorial Guinea, Black African power. Equatorial Guinea, peace and Pan-Africanism. All Africans on the continent, we are one people, one race, one nation, one family. October the 22nd, 1968, in order to further undermine the Black power and Black liberation movements. On October the 22nd, 1968, so this is the 55th anniversary of the Gun Control Act, October 22nd, 1968 to October 22nd, 2021. October the 22nd, 1968 to October the 22nd, 2021, the Gun Control Act. What was the Gun Control Act of 1968? What was the Gun Control Act of 1968? What was the Gun Control Act of 1968? The Gun Control Act of 1968 eliminated mail-order guns, and it prevented felons and drug users and mental incompetence from buying and owning guns. Listen to me. Listen to me, family. Let me put my psychologist hat on for a hot minute. Let me put my psychologist hat on for a hot minute. Let me put my psychologist hat on for a hot minute. In order to further undermine the Black Panther Party and the Black liberation struggle, in order to further undermine the Black Panther Party and the Black liberation struggle, the government passed the Gun Control Act on October the 22nd of 1968, which stopped you from mailing guns, and it prevented a felon, drug user, or anyone deemed mentally incompetent from buying or owning guns. I'm going to say it again. Felons, drug users, and mental incompetence. This is still the law of the land. This is still the law of the land. Why is it important for us to know this, Dr. Umar? Why is it important for us to know this, Dr. Umar? Let me tell you why. They would lock up the Black Panthers. They would lock up the Black community activists. They would lock up the Black Liberation Army soldiers, charge them with a felony. And because they were charged with a felony, they could no longer carry arms. Do you see how this works? Do you see how this works? We're going to lock up the Black Panthers. We're going to lock up the Black community activists. We're going to lock up the Black Liberation Army soldiers. We're going to charge them with a felony. And once they're charged with a felony, they can't buy, sell, or use weapons. That's why they passed the Gun Control Act to disarm the Black community. To disarm the Black community. Also, if you are a drug addict, if you are on drugs that can lead to chemical dependence, you are not legally allowed to buy and own guns. So for all my brothers and sisters, taking Zoloft, taking Paxil, taking ADHD medications, taking anxiety medications, all of you taking psychiatric meds, all of you popping Xannies. Oh, yes. Oh, all of you giving your children Ritalin, all of you giving your children Adderall, all of you giving your children Concerta, all of you giving your children Metadate. I want you to know that if push comes to shove, I want you to know that if push comes to shove, they can use your son's ADHD diagnosis in childhood. They can use your daughter's depression diagnosis in childhood, and the fact you gave them childhood psychiatric meds, and the fact you gave them childhood psychiatric meds, and they can use that to refuse your son or daughter their constitutional right to carry arms and defend themselves. This is why ADHD is a trap. This is why conduct disorder is a trap. This is why disruptive behavior disorder is a trap. All these Black boys taking meds can be prevented from carrying arms to defend their queen and children. All these Black boys taking meds can be prevented once they become adults from carrying arms and defending their families. And all of you adults taking depression medicine, psychotic medicine, anxiety medicine, sleep medicine, any psychiatric med can be used to deny you your Fourth Amendment rights. Oh, yes. The right to carry arms. Which amendment is the right to carry arms? Which amendment is the right to carry arms? You can be denied that because you let some white teacher tell you your Black son need medication to get an education. Your son and daughter can be denied a right to defend their families, to buy and own firearms because you let a white teacher convince you that your child need medication to get an education. Y'all better understand, overstand, and understand me. Y'all better Second Amendment, thank you. Second Amendment right. Your child can be denied their Second Amendment right. Y'all better understand, overstand, and understand me. This is not a game. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. You get a felony, you can't carry. You take habit-forming psychiatric medications, you can't carry. Let's go to category number 3. Let's go to category number 3. Now let's go to category number 3. Under category number 3, Mental incompetent. Mental incompetence cannot carry guns. Now, we can understand that with someone with paranoid schizophrenia. We can understand that with someone with severe and profound mental illness. We can understand that with someone with severe and profound intellectual disability. But let me say this. What about all those black boys and girls who were classified as retarded by the school psychologist unjustifiably? What about all the black children who were classified by the school psychologist under special ed as mentally retarded because their IQ score fell below 70, but who are not really mentally retarded? I hope y'all listening. I hope y'all listening. How many of you have children classified as intellectually disabled and you never challenged the diagnosis? How many of you have children classified as intellectually disabled but you never challenged the diagnosis? How many of you have children classified as intellectually disabled but you never challenged the classification? Do you know they can prevent your son or daughter from ever carrying a weapon when they become an adult? Your son or daughter, if they graduate high school and you did not undo that intellectual disability categorization, if they graduate high school and you did not undo that intellectual disability categorization, your son or daughter can be prevented for the rest of their life from carrying a gun because mom or dad let them get evaluated for special ed, let them get categorized as intellectually disabled, and you never challenged it. And you never challenged it. And you never challenged it. Brothers and sisters, oops. Wait a minute. I blocked the wrong person. Wait a minute. Hold on, Octavia. I blocked the wrong person. Oh, man. Octavia Carter. That's my Facebook wife. I blocked her by accident. How do you unblock on Facebook? How do you unblock on Facebook? I accidentally blocked my Facebook wife. Octavia, we'll get it together though, Queen. Come to Instagram, Queen. I'm trying to find out how to unblock you. Wait a minute. Can I unblock you? Forgive me for the interruption. I accidentally blocked a supporter. I tried to block a coon and accidentally blocked a supporter while trying to block a coon. Oh, man. My apologies, Sister Octavia. Tell me how to unblock you. Tell me how to unblock you. But brothers and sisters, this is why Dr. Umar, this is why Dr. Umar does free review of intellectually disabled evaluation reports for black children. This is why Dr. Umar does free review of evaluations for black children. This is why Dr. Umar does free review of intellectually disabled evaluations for black children. Don't let your child graduate. Don't let your child graduate from high school classified as intellectually disabled if they are not, because that can be used to prevent them from ever J. Edgar Hoover, right after they killed King the same year, called the Black Panther Party the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. The greatest threat to the internal security of the country. The greatest threat to the internal security of the country. And then in 1968, the Black Panther Party. My heroes, the Black Panther Party. Our heroes, the Black Panther Party. Our ancestors and elders, because some of them are still here, had a free breakfast and clinic program. Free breakfast and clinic program. Free breakfast and clinic in the elementary schools was started by the Black Panther Party in the community. in order to undermine the influence of the Black Panther Party. In order to undermine the influence of the Black Panther Party, the U.S. government started giving free breakfast in the schools. The government was not giving breakfast before the Panthers was giving breakfast. The government was not giving breakfast before the Panthers was giving breakfast. The government was not giving breakfast before the Panthers were giving breakfast. Brothers and sisters. Okay? It was the Black Panthers who started the free lunch. And to undermine the Panthers, the government started giving out free lunch. And the Panthers had clinics in the community, so the government started putting clinics in the high schools because the Panthers were doing it. The government copied the Panthers. Of course, Garvey did it even before them. But in recent times, it was the Panthers who was feeding our babies and giving out health care in the community. And to undermine the love that the Black community was having for the Panthers, the government started putting free breakfast and lunch in the schools with the health care clinics. And then in 1968, to appease Negroes, in 1968, in order to appease Negroes, your president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, a Democrat, signed an executive order requiring affirmative action in hiring and government contracts for women, not for Black people, for women. See, this is the beginning of the feminism, modern feminism, which was invented and financed by the CIA. Modern feminism, which was invented and financed by the CIA. Modern feminism, invented and financed by the CIA. J. Edgar Hoover, Lyndon Baines Johnson in 68 signs the executive order requiring affirmative action in hiring and government contracts for women, not blacks, for women. You see that? So you already see Dr. King only been in the grave a few months. Dr. King only been in the grave a few months. Dr. King only been in the grave a few months, and they're already promoting the white woman's agenda above the Black community's agenda. They're already promoting. Dr. King only been dead 5 months. They're already promoting the woman's agenda over and above the Black community agenda. And then in 68, Henry Lewis became the first Black conductor of a major American orchestra. One thing you're going to see when we get into the 70s, they start giving Black people a lot of tokenism. They started giving Black people a lot of tokenism. Black faces in high places, Black faces in new places. Tokenism, Black faces in high places, Black faces in new places. Tokenism, Black faces in high places, Black faces in new places. They started giving us tokenism as a distraction from tokenism as a distraction from qualitative systemic change. We still fall for that strategy today. We still fall for that strategy today. They'll give you a Barack Obama. They'll give you a Colin Powell, rest in peace. They'll give you a Condoleezza Rice. They'll give you a Clarence Thomas. They'll give you a Kamala Harris. And you think that means progress for the group because a few tokens were put in some new places. Stop falling for the okie doke. Stop falling for the okie doke. Stop falling for the okie doke, brothers and sisters. 1968, Fred Hampton. 1968, Fred Hampton. 1968, Fred Hampton. In 1968, Fred Hampton, a youth activist, joins the Black Panther Party. In 1968, the same year that Dr. King and little Bobby Hutton is murdered, Fred Hampton, how old was Fred? 20 years old, joins the Black Panther Party, quickly becoming the Illinois chair of the Black Panther Party. Illinois Black Panther Party chair, Fred Hampton, 1968. January 1st, 69. We get into the 70s. We get into the 70s, brothers and sisters. You better strap on your seatbelt. And by the way, I will be the history and political science teacher at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy for your sons. I will be the political science teacher at the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy for your sons. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the Cash App, $FDMG School. Hit the PayPal, International Africans, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Hit the PayPal, International Africans, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. On January the 1st of 1969, on January the 1st of 1969, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 signed to Motown Records and dropped the #1 hit, ABC. It's just easy as 1, 2, 3, do, re, mi, ABC, baby, you and me, girl. Rest in peace to Michael Jackson, the greatest who ever did it. Rest in peace to Michael Jackson, the greatest who ever did it. But on January 1st, 1969, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 signed to Motown Records and dropped the hit record, ABC. That means Africans, blacks, and coons. Conscious Africans, conscious blacks, and coons. ABC. It's just easy as 1, 2, 3. I just see a coon next to me. Coons can be, coons know me, coons we see. Let's continue. Let's continue, brothers and sisters. On January 17th, 1969, tragedy would hit the Black Panther Party in California. On January the 17th of 1969, tragedy would hit the Black Panther Party in California when our Prentice Bunchy Carter, rest in peace to our great ancestor, our Prentice Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, leader of the West Coast Black Panther Party, were shot and killed on the UCLA campus, Campbell Hall, by members of Malana Karenga's United Slave Organization. On January the 17th, 1969, our ancestors, our Prentice Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, were ambushed on the campus of UCLA inside of Campbell Hall, shot dead by members of Malana Karenga's United Slaves Movement. Malana Karenga was not present from what I understand. He also denies any participation or culpability. The murder of our Prentice Bunchy Carter and John Huggins remains a mystery in the black community to this very day. But it was discovered that COINTELPRO instigated the rivalry between the Black Panther Party and the United Slaves. And then, on January the 20th, 1969, on January the 20th, 1969, Richard the Renegade Republican Nixon was sworn in as the 37th president of the United States. Richard Nixon's election and inauguration signaled the symbolic end of the black civil rights struggle. Richard Nixon's inauguration on January the 20th, 1969, signaled the symbolic end to the black civil rights era, ushering in an age of the criminalization of black people, police siege of the black community. Nixon would bring in mandatory minimum sentencing, prison construction, and undercover police officers. Richard Nixon would pioneer mandatory minimum sentencing, undercover police officers, and mass prison construction. And with Medgar dead, with Malcolm dead, with Martin dead, with the Panthers fighting as much as they can to defend us from the police, We had no serious leadership. We had no serious leadership after Malcolm and Martin, with the exception of the Panthers, who could speak up and advocate for black people to push back against Richard Nixon returning black people to Jim Crow. Richard Nixon would return you to Jim Crow by way of mass incarceration. And then on May 9th, 1969, the Bilderbergers would meet in Denmark. The Bilderbergers will meet. When I do the Bilderberg podcast, we're going to get into that. Now, remember I said Lyndon Baines Johnson signed an executive order for white feminists, right? The white woman got her equality on the back of the black civil rights struggle. The white feminists got their equality on the back of the black civil rights struggle. Now here comes the Rainbow Nation. Now here comes the Rainbow Nation. Now here comes the Rainbow Nation. Dr. King murdered April 4th of 1968. On July the 19th of 1969, 1 year and 3 months later, Dr. King's grave was not even cold yet. 1 year and 3 months later, on July 19th, 1969. Hold on. Where them Stonewall? Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. On June 28th, 1969. On June 28th, 1969. 1 year and 2 months after Dr. King was murdered, the Stonewall Riots in New York City officially began the gay rights movement. June 28th, 1969, the Stonewall Riots in New York City gave birth to the gay rights movement. 1 year after Dr. King's death, Richard Nixon becomes president. He backrolls black folks. And then the Rainbow Nation give birth to their movement, taking over the black civil rights movement. Do y'all see how this works? They kill King. Richard Nixon becomes president. He rolls back all the civil rights he can, gives birth to the modern criminalization movement of the black community, and then the Rainbow Nation swoops in, takes over the civil rights movement that Richard Nixon just arrested. The Rainbow Nation swoops in and takes over the civil rights movement that Richard Nixon just arrested. The Rainbow Nation swoops in and takes over the black civil rights movement that Richard Nixon just arrested. I have a confession. I am not only the greatest black school psychologist in American history. I'm the greatest black political scientist in American history. I have a confession. I'm not only the greatest black school psychologist in American history. I'm the greatest black political scientist in American history. And I got one more confession. On top of being the greatest black political scientist in American history and the greatest black school psychologist in American history, I'm taking the LSAT in January to go to law school. I want to be the greatest black educational attorney of all time. I'm already the greatest black school psychologist of all time. I'm already the greatest black political scientist of all time. I want to be the greatest black educational attorney of all time. I'm taking the LSAT in January. I've made up my mind. I'm taking the law school admission test in January. I've made up my mind. Enough playing with you coons. Enough playing with these coons. Let's make it pop. Let's get back. So Richard Nixon becomes president January 20th of 1969. The Rainbow Riots are June 28th, 1969. New York City Rainbow Riots take over the civil rights movement. Attorney Ifa Tunde. Psychologist Ifa Tunde, political scientist Ifa Tunde, author Ifa Tunde, orator Ifa Tunde, attorney Ifa Tunde. On July 19th, 1969, On July 19th, 1969, Moms Mabley, the mother of black comedy, Moms Mabley on July 19th, 1969 would hit number 35 on the Billboard Hot 100 at the age of 75. Moms Mabley was a bad woman. Rest in peace to Moms Mabley. Rest in peace to Moms Mabley. Rest in peace. She was 75 years old. A 75-year-old elder black comedian. A 75-year-old elder black comedian, Moms Mabley, would hit 35 on the Billboard Top 100 at the age of 75, becoming the oldest living person to ever score a top 40 hit. Moms Mabley, she still holds the record. She still holds the record. Moms Mabley, the oldest person to ever get a top 40 hit on the Billboard chart. Moms Mabley. She played in Carnegie Hall in 62. She played in Emperor Jones with Paul Robeson. At the height of her career, she was called the funniest woman in the world. Moms Mabley, the funniest woman in the world. For 40 years, she was the preeminent black female comic, an open rainbow woman. She passed away on May the 23rd, 1975. For 40 years, she was the top black female comedian in the world. Richard Pryor, I don't think Richard Pryor was on top for 40. I don't think Eddie Murphy was on top for 40. Moms Mabley for 40 years was the top black female. Now, I don't get down with the rainbow part, but I still respect our ancestor for what she did for paving the way for other black female comics to have an opportunity to eat food and raise their children. I can still validate her contribution to our community and disagree with the Rainbow Nation aspect of her life. Moving on. Understand, overstand, and understand. Moving on. Understand, understand, and overstand. Sister Celebrity, you say she was not a part of the Rainbow Nation? I don't know. That's between God, Moms Mabley, and any women she may have been romantically tied to. I hope she wasn't, but it's not up to me. On August the 8th to August the 9th, Charles Manson's followers, Neanderthal Nation, Mayonnaise Mafia. On August the 8th, August the 9th, Charles Manson followers broke into a home, killing a pregnant actress, 3 friends, and 18-year-old. The Manson killings were some of the most horrific and brutal killings in America since the killing of enslaved Africans. And let me be clear. Let me be absolutely clear. Let me be absolutely clear. There was no massacre in America. No killing, no serial killing, no school shooting worse than the abuses our ancestors suffered. When you hear the news media say this was the worst killing, when you hear the news media say this was the largest massacre, when you hear the news media say this was the most horrific or gruesome killing, reject that, Africans. Unapologetically reject that. Because when they say that this is the worst, they are automatically disqualifying what happened to our ancestors. When they say this is the worst, they are automatically disqualifying what happened to our ancestors. When they say this is the worst, they are automatically disqualifying what happened to our ancestors. No shooting in Virginia can be worse than what they did to our ancestors in Virginia. No massacre in Pennsylvania can be worse than what they did to our ancestors in slavery. Nothing they do in Georgia can be worse than what they did during the enslavement of our ancestors. So don't you ever let them manipulate you into thinking this is the worst tragedy in American history. Hell no. The worst tragedy in American history was the dehumanization, the suffocation, extermination of African people in America. That's the worst tragedy in every state in this country. Period. Point blank. End of story. September 1969. We almost getting to the 70s. September 1969, Ho Chi Minh, who admittedly studied Garvey. Ho Chi Minh, the leader of the Vietnam Revolution, who admittedly studied Garvey. So we got a lot of black nationalist organizations who copied Garvey, but they won't admit it. Ho Chi Minh admitted he copied Garvey. On September 1969, Ho Chi Minh led Vietnam to independence, and he dies of a heart attack in September of 1969. Ho Chi Minh, the non-African Garveyite. Ho Chi Minh, who beat America in Vietnam. A Garveyite, a non-African Garveyite defeated America on foreign soil. Garvey is the greatest. Nobody compares to him. It was a Garveyite who beat America. Ho Chi Minh. September 14th, 1969. September 14th, 1969, Bill Cosby. North Philadelphia in the house. Bill Cosby. North Philadelphia in the house. Bill Cosby begins the first show for a black man, first TV show for a black man to be featured as the leading character, 52 episodes on the Bill Cosby Show, September 14th, 1969. Bill Cosby becomes the first black person in America to have their own show. 2 years, 52 episodes. The Bill Cosby Show. But I want y'all to see the tokenism. I want y'all to see the token. We're going to put Bill Cosby on TV because we locking black people up. Y'all see that? We're going to put Bill Cosby on TV to distract from the fact that we locking black people up. So while everybody watching and celebrating the Cosby Show, not the Cosby Show, this is the Bill Cosby Show. Don't confuse this with Felicia Rashad and Malcolm Jamal Warner. Don't confuse this. This ain't the Bill Cosby Show of the 80s. This is the Bill Cosby Show of the 1969. But my point is, they put Bill Cosby on TV to distract you from Richard Nixon's anti-African agenda. They put Bill Cosby on TV to distract you from the fact that Richard Nixon was rolling back everything Dr. King worked for, brothers and sisters. And then on October 29th, 1969, the Supreme Court ruled segregation in schools must end at once. So hold on. 1954, the Supreme Court said segregation has no place and schools must be desegregated at all deliberate speed, right? All deliberate speed. That was in 1964. And then in 1968, they said the schools must be desegregated from the root to the branch. And then 1969, the Supreme Court comes back a third time. A third time. The Supreme Court comes back a third time, October the 29th, 1968, and rules that segregation in the schools must end at once. Y'all follow me? Y'all follow me? So can somebody tell, why did the Supreme Court have to make 3 decisions for the schools to desegregate, and in 2021, they still segregated? Somebody help me. This is why I'm going to law school. This is why I'm going to law school. I want to argue this case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. Law offices of Intellectual Ifa Tunde, attorney at law. Law offices of Intellectual Ifa Tunde, attorneys at law. The Supreme Court desegregated the schools in 54. Said that segregation in the schools must be dismantled from the root to the branch in 68. And then in 1969, it came back again 3 times and said the schools must desegregate at once. Can somebody tell me why the schools are not desegregated yet? Can somebody tell me why the schools are not desegregated yet? Can somebody tell me, when I go to law school, y'all have to pay for it because y'all going to be the beneficiaries from it. When I go to law school, y'all going to pay for it because y'all going to be the ones benefiting from it. Oh, yes. I struggles for the people, so the people must struggle for me. I lives for the people, so the people must live for me. I stand for the people, so the people must stand for me. Let's continue. On December the 4th, 1969. On December the 4th, 1969, one of the greatest black intellectuals, one of the greatest black organizers, one of the greatest black young leaders and voices in American African history would be assassinated. Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party, along with Mark Clark. Mark Clark was assassinated in his sleep when his Kool-Aid was drugged by his bodyguard, who provided the police with a sketch of the Chicago Panther House. He was 21 years old. 21 years old, they assassinated Fred Hampton. Why did they kill Fred Hampton at that time? He had just came back from a Black Panther Party Central Committee steering meeting. Fred Hampton had just been elected the national spokesperson. Fred Hampton had just been elected the national spokesperson for the Black Panther Party, and the FBI said, hell no. We can only dream about what the great Fred Hampton would have done for Black America had the FBI not assassinated him. We can only dream about what the great Fred Hampton would have done for Black America had he been allowed to carry out his destiny. Rest in peace to Fred Hampton. That is one gravesite I need to visit. I don't know if he's buried in Chicago. My Chicago Africans, where is Fred Hampton buried? My Chicago Africans, where is the late great Fred Hampton buried? My Chicago Africans, where is the late great Fred Hampton buried? Rest in peace. And then 5 days later, 5 days later, 5 days after they murdered Fred Hampton, 5 days after they murdered Fred Hampton on December the 9th of 1969, 13 Black Panther Party members withstood a shootout against 350 Los Angeles Police Department soldiers that lasted for hours in Southern California at the Black Panther headquarters, 41st and Central in Los Angeles. The police dropped bombs. But Geronimo Pratt, rest in peace, Geronimo Pratt, who went to jail for a crime he didn't commit until it was overturned by Johnny Cochran, who was also murdered by the power structure. Rest in peace, Geronimo Pratt and Johnny Cochran. 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 Fred Hampton is buried in Louisiana. Where? Somebody text me where Fred Hampton is buried. I have to visit his grave. Text me the grave, the cemetery where the great Fred Hampton is buried. Text me the cemetery. Text me the cemetery. But listen, we all watched the movie 300 about the 300 Athenians that withstood the Persian army, right? 300. They went down to the death. 300 who took on the whole Persian army, right? Leonidas in them. That was a myth. That wasn't real life. 300 was a myth. That wasn't real life. But guess what? Those 13 Black Panthers at 41st and Central in Los Angeles on December the 9th of 1969, that was the real 300. Those 13 Black Panthers at 41st and Central in Los Angeles who withstood 350 police bombs and ammunition, smoke bombs and grenades and bullets. They stood up to the Los Angeles police with Geronimo Pratt as their lead. That was the real 300. That was the real 300. That was the real 300. Geronimo Pratt was a decorated Vietnam veteran who came back to the black community and taught the Black Panther Party self-defense on a whole new level. Geronimo Pratt was a decorated Vietnam veteran who came back to the black community and taught the black community self-defense on a whole new level. Geronimo Pratt was a decorated Vietnam veteran who came back to the black community and taught the Black Panther Party self-defense on a whole new level. Rest in peace to my ancestor, Geronimo Pratt. Let me tell you something y'all don't know. Everybody know about SWAT. SWAT, S-W-A-T, Strategic Weapons and Assault Team. Guess who gave birth to SWAT? Guess who gave birth to SWAT? SWAT was born during the December 9th, 1969 raid of the Black Panther Party Los Angeles headquarters at 41st and Central. It was the first time ever. It was the first time ever that SWAT was used in order to put down a rebellion. Trained by the U.S. military, by 2008, 9,000 of 15,000 law enforcement agencies would have a SWAT team. Did y'all hear that? Born from the Black Panther Revolt. Born, created to destroy the Black Panthers. SWAT was created to destroy the Black Panthers. And by 2008, 9,000 law enforcement agencies had a SWAT team. Let me say this to my European supporters out there. Let me say this to my European supporters. Because I get emails from white people say, Dr. Umar, we respect you and what you're trying to do for your people. We don't hate you. This is what I want to say to the Europeans in the chat. I don't hate you. I hate white supremacy. When I talk about the Neanderthal nation, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the bigots. When I talk about the mayonnaise mafia, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the bigots. So I want you to know I respect you as a human being. You can't join my movement. You can't fund my movement. You can't marry none of the men or women in my movement, but I do respect you. When I'm castigating your community, I'm castigating the bigots. Liberal sympathizers who are not hypocrites, I respect you. I still cannot trust you because all white people are racist. You know this. All of you want control of the resources, the opportunities, and the privileges, but I do respect you. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. Continuing on. SWAT teams will be provided by the Pentagon with money for the police to have military-grade equipment, including armored tanks. Armored tanks in the black community as a result of SWAT. Woo! We almost to 1970. We almost to 1970. My brother Donnell, listen, brother. I respect Noble Drew Ali. I respect the Morris Science Temples, brother. I respect you. But if you mention one more disrespectful comment on my chat, I'ma block your ass. Do you understand me, my brother? You have a right to be a Moor. Islam to all my Moorish brothers. Islam to all my Moorish sisters. I love you. I love you. But this is a Garvey house. And this is a Garvey chat. And this is a Pan-African movement. And we are Africans, and we are loyal to African redemption, and we are not interested in no religious solution to African people. So will you please leave me the hell alone? I understand you have to invade my chat because I'm the strongest voice in the world for black consciousness. I get it. None of you organizations have anybody with the stature, the following, the education, the articulation, or the King Kongaliciousness as the Prince of Pan-Africanism. I understand why you invade my chat. Y'all did this to Garvey 100 years ago. Y'all came to the Garvey conventions and tried to recruit under his nose. Y'all did this. It didn't work for Garvey. It's not going to work for me because I'm stronger than y'all. Pan-Africanism is stronger than anything y'all teach. you won't win. So please let me finish my chat, brother. Please, I'm educating the people. This is a class. Will you please go buy you some more red fezzes and leave me the hell alone, brother? Don't you got a vocabulary book you should be stuttering right now, brother? Shouldn't you be looking at the etymology of words right now, brother? Why are you on my Pan-African chat for, my brother? Can one of the Moors get this coon off my chat, please? What is the Moorish word for coon? What do y'all call coons? Whatever the Moors call coons, please come get him off my chat. I digress. I digress. December 1969. Richard Nixon implements the first military draft lottery since World War II. December 1969, Richard Nixon implements the first military draft lottery since World War II. Many white men flee to Canada to avoid going to the war. Many white men flee to Canada to avoid going to the war. 1969, Supreme Court declares that all deliberate speed standard of school desegregation handed down during 1954 was no longer constitutional and orders immediate desegregation of Mississippi schools. The Supreme Court been talking, but nobody been listening. The Supreme Court, this is 4 Supreme Court decisions to desegregate the schools, nobody listening. So the Supreme Court don't run nothing in this country when it comes to black folks, now do it. The Supreme Court don't run nothing in this country when it comes to black folks, now do that. 4th time, Supreme Court 1969 once again says all deliberate speed is unconstitutional and desegregation must happen. And here we are, 2021. Desegregation still ain't happened. And then in 1969, on the mother continent of Africa, 1969, the mother continent of Africa, 3 major African revolutionary leaders are assassinated. Tom Mboya of Kenya, rest in peace. Shout out to my Kenyan Africans. Shout out to my Kenyan Africans. I've been to Kenya. I spoke at the University of Kenyatta in 2016 when I was halfway through my national tour of Azania, Republic of South Africa. It was the most significant lecture I ever gave in my life. More than 38 different African countries was represented through their youth leadership, and the Prince of Pan-Africanism gave him the Garvey grenade. It's the most important lecture I ever gave in my life. In Kenya, Nairobi, University of Kenyatta, I will never forget it. Shout out to my Kenyan Africans. Rest in peace to Tom Mboya. Eduardo Mondlane was assassinated, and he was a great revolutionary. Mozambique, with a book bomb. They killed him with a book bomb. And Abdi Rashid Shermeek, 2nd president of Somalia, was murdered by his bodyguard. 3 Pan-Africanists. Tom Mboya of Kenya, Eduardo Mondlane of Mozambique, they killed him with a book bomb. And Abdi Rashid Shermeek. Almost sounds like Jermaine Shoemake Umar Rashad, huh? Abdi Rashid Shermeek. Almost sound like Jermaine Shoemake Umar Rashad. My names, don't it? The 2nd president of Somalia was killed by his bodyguard. You can't trust your right-hand man in this game. You can't trust your right-hand man in this game. You can't even trust your right-hand man in this game. 1969, the United States Army Biological Weapons Lab was declassified and closed. We know that's a lie. In 1969, the United States Army's Biological Weapons Lab was declared closed. Really? So how we get AIDS 10 years later? We'll get to that later. The 1980s is going to be hot, but we got to get to the 70s. 1969, California adopts the first no-fault divorce law. 1969, California adopts the very first no-fault divorce law requiring mutual consent. California, 1969, the very first no-fault divorce law in the United States. Also in 69, Richard Nixon begins to withdraw troops out of Vietnam, reducing the number of troops in Vietnam from 550,000 to 69,000. They start bringing the troops home from Vietnam. And Governor Ronald Reagan, Governor Ronald Reagan, white supremacist racist Governor Ronald Reagan, has Angela Davis fired. Ronald Reagan has Angela Davis fired from UCLA as a professor because she was a registered communist and had to be provided with 24-hour security around the clock on campus due to the death threats against her life. Ronald Reagan fires Angela Davis from UCLA for being a communist. Shout out to Angela Davis for all the things she did as a youth in the Black liberation struggle. I take issue with some of the decisions she has made later in life. Respectfully, I take issue with some of the decisions and positions she has taken later in life, but much respect to Angela Davis for the sacrifices she offered to the Black liberation struggle for our people. I salute you, Queen Mother. We can agree to disagree on some things, but I salute you, Queen Mother. Queen Mother Angela Davis, I salute you. We're going to talk about Queen Mother Assata in a minute. We're going to talk about Queen Mother Assata in a minute. We're going to talk about Queen Mother Assata Shakur in a minute. But let me say this. I will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Thursday, November the 4th from 2 to 8. I will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Thursday, November the 4th from 2 to 8. I will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee, November the 4th from 2 to 8. Free event, lecture, Q&A, book signing. 2 to 4, lecture, Q&A. 4 to 8, drop-in, book sign, special ed clinic. Atlanta, Georgia, Friday, November the 5th, 6 to 9 lecture, doors at 5. Atlanta, Georgia, 6 to 9 lecture on Friday, November the 5th, doors at 5. Chattanooga free, Atlanta free. Chattanooga free, Atlanta free. Chattanooga 2 to 8, Atlanta 6 to 9. Chattanooga 2 to 8, Atlanta 6 to 9. Saturday, I'm still deciding where I'm going to be on Saturday, November the 6th. We might end up in Mobile, Alabama. We might end up in Columbus, Georgia. We might end up in Columbia, South Carolina. If you are too, I was looking for Birmingham in Mobile, but we couldn't get a spot in Birmingham or Mobile. So if you live in Birmingham, we got a spot in Mobile, but Mobile is 4.5 hours from Atlanta. I was looking for Birmingham or Montgomery. If you have a space in Birmingham or Montgomery, get at Dr. Umar. I looked at Jacksonville, Florida, but y'all 4.5 hours too. So if you have a place and a space we can use for free and you are no more than 3 hours from Atlanta, if you have a space and a place that we can use for free and you are no more than 4 hours from Atlanta, I'm willing to grace your space with a free lecture event and book signing with the Prince of Pan-Africanism. Wednesday, November the 10th, Everlasting Life Cafe, Capitol Heights, Maryland. Contact the restaurants for tickets. Wednesday, November the 10th, lecture 6 to 9, Capitol Heights, Maryland. Everlasting Life Cafe. Contact the restaurant for tickets or go to elifepresents.com. Nat Turner Land. Thursday, November the 11th, Nat Turner celebration, 190th memorial of the execution of the greatest black revolutionary in American history will be on Thursday, November the 11th. Go to natturnerlibrary.com. Go to natturnerlibrary.com. Friday, November the 12th, Kroc Center, Norfolk, Hampton Roads, 7 cities. Friday, November the 12th. Kroc Center, Hampton Roads, Norfolk, Virginia. Chesapeake, you better be there. Virginia Beach, you better be there. Suffolk, you better be there. Hampton, you better be there. Newport News, you better be there. Newport, you better be there. Albany, New York, Black Expo, first time ever. Albany, New York, Saturday, November the 13th, Black Expo, first time ever. Albany, New York, Saturday, November the 13th, Black Expo, Prince of Pan-Africanism debut, Great Blacks in Wax Museum, Great Blacks in Wax, Baltimore, Harriet Tubman City, Frederick Douglass City, Stand Up, Great Blacks in Wax, 1601 East North Avenue, 2 until 8 on Sunday, November the 14th. Sunday, November the 14th. Sunday, November the 14th, brothers and sisters. Great Blacks in Wax, 2 until 8. If you need the flyer for any of the events, text my phone. If you have a space 3 hours out of Atlanta for an event on Saturday, November the 6th, please let me know. 215-989-9858. 215-989-9858. Hit the Cash App. Sign up for the second season of the Dr. Papa Podcast. Sign up for the second season of the Dr. Papa Podcast. I'm going to be hitting y'all with some real podcasts. Sign up for the second season of the Dr. Papa Podcast. If you ordered my book, books are being shipped. Hold tight. If you order my book, books are being shipped. Hold tight. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to end this class and come back with the 1970s. So you have the 60s separate from the 70s. I'm going to end this seminar right now. Come back with the 1970s. Hit the Cash App. Hit the Cash App. $ FDMG School. Peace and Pan-Africanism.